Thank you, everyone, for joining. I'm going to walk through the sequence of events that occurred on June 30th at about 11:15 regarding our on-duty firefighter, Terrell Pasci. The Providence Police received a call at about 11:15 or so that a building on Cranston Street was being broken into or damaged. So they sent patrol cars in and around that area. The address of 231 Cranston Street that was given, the initial officers report that there was nobody in and around the building, and it did not appear to be damaged in any way. Shortly thereafter, a victim of an armed robbery appeared on Cranston Street and spoke to our officers. He describes a vehicle, red in color, sedan, that went by, and two males were in the car. He described them as Latino with masks on. One had a .45 black gun, and one had a knife, and they demanded the money that was owed to him. There were two victims that were accosted by these two suspects, in which both fled on foot and did not get any money or any personal effects. That victim alerts a Providence police officer right around Cranston Street and Messer Street about the robbery that just occurred. I will show you video of that victim talking to that officer, describing what had just occurred and the description of the car and the suspects. We continue to look for that red vehicle in and around that area. The victim and the second victim also calls 911, and I will share with you the dispatch audio and the call that was taken into 911 describing the vehicle which was involved in the armed robbery. As a result of the police officers looking for the victims, looking for the suspects and the red vehicle, one of the victims on that body cam prior to and during that conversation with that initial officer points down the road on Messer Street and points to a red car that is sitting parked on Messer Street right outside the fire station, the Messer Street fire station. Two police officers respond to that red vehicle, which was occupied by two individuals. Officer Sandorsi was one officer that you'll see on the video and approaches on the driver's side of the red vehicle, and Officer Calici responds on the passenger side. Officer Calici engaged his body-worn camera while he was in the patrol car that you'll see. And then the encounter in which both officers had their guns drawn at the two occupants that were in the vehicle. Firefighter Terrell Pasci was in the passenger seat of that red vehicle, and a female companion was in the operator's seat of that red vehicle. The vehicle was owned by the female friend of Pasci, Firefighter Pasci. They were both ordered out of the vehicle at gunpoint. Firefighter Pasci has his fire uniform on, and he also has his fire radio in his hand. You'll see in the body cam that the officer on the driver's side orders the female out of the car. Firefighter Paré begins to get out of the passenger's side, hearing those commands, and Providence police officer Kalishi orders him in a very forceful verbal demand to remain in that car. And so he does. He identifies himself initially saying he's a Providence police officer or a police officer. That was a mistake, I think, out of nerves and police officers coming to his vehicle, guns drawn. He mistakenly says that. He then calmly tells the officer he's a firefighter, and he shows his fire radio and his hat, which he was holding in his hand. Within seconds of that, the police officer Kalichi shuts down his body cam. The police officer Matt Sandorsi never engages his body cam throughout the entire encounter. After they were satisfied that it was a firefighter, and he shuts down his body cam, Officer Kalichi then leaves that area and continues on with seeking a suspect in a red car responsible for the robbery. Officer Sandorsi continues at the scene, has conversation off camera with our firefighter and his female companion. Officer Sandorsi requests a search of the vehicle, and he proceeds to search both the passenger side and the driver's side seat, underneath the seat. A pretty quick search. He did not search the back seat because there was clothing in the back seat, and he elects not to search the back seat. They depart. Thereafter, the firefighter eventually goes back into the fire station. He reports that encounter to his officer. A sergeant from the Providence Police subsequently goes to the fire station and speaks with firefighter Paré and explains the circumstances to him. Let me back up. You'll hear on the body cam that Officer Sandorsi, after the encounter was mitigated and the camera was about to be turned off, you'll hear conversation that he apologizes for the circumstances, that the vehicle was pointed out by a victim of an armed robbery, and that's why they came upon him like they did. And then the camera and the audio goes off. As you know, firefighter Paré reports it up, and an inquiry begins the following day as to the circumstances. The police officer, Sandorsi, will be held accountable and disciplined for not engaging his body camera throughout the entire thing. It was an unfortunate, interaction between the police officers that were looking for robbery suspects, and we had an on-duty firefighter sitting in a car that was the same description of the robbery suspects. I can understand the firefighter's perception and his belief that he was selected and treated because of his race, and he was a firefighter and didn't understand why he was interacted in that way. I've spoken to him several times, and when the police were looking for a car and he was in that car, they didn't know who was in that car and didn't know the race of those two individuals in that car. Uh, I believe that subsequent to that encounter, when the body cameras went off, uh, there could have been better judgment used when um, when it concluded, uh, particularly with the search. Understand that the officer had a legal right to search and had probable cause, but better discretion could have been used, and as a result, caused this incident with a black firefighter feeling that he was treated differently because of his race.